Hey, MentalReach here. So one of the biggest questions people have trouble with is what the purpose in life is. But I think the bigger problem isn't what your life purpose is, but what kind of idea you can bond yourself with. For example, as children, we usually bond with the idea of becoming famous, having several children, buying a giant house, getting an amazing job, and traveling around the world. But this sort of idealism usually fades away as we grow up and we begin to see the difficulties that life presents us. Life is no longer like a Disney movie, but rather a Hunger Games situation where we see each one of our dreams dying one by one as we grow up. And as a result, this causes most of us to chase after more attainable goals that's way smaller than what we originally wanted. And what's crazy is that your life purpose, despite how big or small it may be, can be just as powerful as a black hole once you dab into it, because it creates a force so strong that everything near you can be pulled towards it. And you could think of people who created these black holes because they managed to drag millions of people to follow their beliefs and dreams. Take Steve Jobs, for example, who had people all around the world fall in love with his creations and visions. And then you have people like Aristotle, who attracted a ton of people just because of his philosophies and wisdom. And unlike centuries ago, people aren't born into small villages where their future is to inherit their family's farm, become a blacksmith, or take the role of king. And we now live in an age where we all have the opportunity to become anyone we desire. You can even be a professional prankster if you wanted to be. And that goes to show you just how many life choices we have today. And can you imagine how people back in King Arthur's day would have reacted with the amount of choices we have today? But despite the vast amount of jobs we can choose from, we still find ourselves wasting our intelligence away on something that doesn't mean anything more to us than a paycheck. And it's because of the amount of careers we can choose from that makes people go insane. We say things to ourselves like, should I be a programmer? Should I open a business? Or should I start a comic book? And the number one question we always return back to is it possible? But if you take a look into the book Black Hole Focus by Isaiah Henko, it gives you the time to really drill into the question, what is truly the meaning of your life purpose? And it won't be as hard as you think it is. The first part is, give yourself a wake-up call. You ever notice how easy it was to get out of bed if there was something you look forward to that day? In Japan, there's a special word for a reason to get up in the morning known as ikigai. And ikigai is how some people in Japan manage to live past 100 years old in good health. Unlike days where you have to wake up to go to work or school, special occasions like a trip to Disneyland or a Christmas morning triggers a rush in your brain that excites you to wake up. You're more motivated to get out of bed because you're looking forward to a familiar pleasure once you take action. And like any special occasion, you have to give yourself that energy and purpose by giving yourself a pleasurable reason to get up in the morning. Maybe you want the pleasure of eating breakfast, or maybe you want the pleasure of finishing the project you were working on the night before. A good example I think you should think of is like writing a good book. Some writers like to start at the end and then ask themselves, what is the cause of this effect? And they ask themselves this question over and over again until they have a beginning to work with. So let's say you want to learn how to make video games. What would be your cause and effect to reach that point? Well, first, you're going to have to learn programming so you can create the game. And then you're going to have to learn what are the best tools and software to create a video game with. Not to mention, you're going to have to learn how successful people created video games in the past and what you can learn from them. And giving yourself these causes and effects make it easier for you to wake up in the morning. Because you want your mind to always think towards what can I cause to make this effect. Now number 2 is going to be, don't underestimate your endurance. There is a strange power in creatures that give them the energy to push themselves beyond the limits. For example, back in the 1950s, there was a research done to see how rats could swim in water before sinking or drowning. At first, the rats would only last 15 minutes before they began sinking. So when the scientists began pulling them out before 15 minutes and then placing them back in the tub the next day, they began noticing the rat's swim time increasing every time they did that. And the more the scientists did this, the longer the rats remained swimming in the water, eventually reaching 60 hours. And the reason the rats managed to remain in the water for that long was because they had a sense that something could save them, and that then gave them hope. If you can believe that your future can be better than your present, you gain more energy to keep pushing forward. The rat that only lasted 15 minutes didn't have the endurance to keep going because they couldn't see hope. And people are no different. When someone doesn't have any hope to where they could go, they give up and let themselves drown. For example, there was a meat packer who got stuck in the meat train on his 20th year of working there. And because he knew there was no oxygen inside, he prepared his death by writing a goodbye letter. But what's worse is the fact that his car did have an air leak inside he could have known about if he just moved a few objects out of the way, which could have then saved his life. But he gave up too soon because he didn't even bother looking at all the options he had left. Now the last point he makes is, make that final decision. Every decision you make will determine what you experience in life because you have free will. Whether it's eating a piece of cake or apple, exercising or watching television, every decision you make transforms you into the person you are today. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it. But you can't depend on electronics, online surveys, or horoscopes to determine what you should be. You have to decide that for yourself by understanding what you like to do the most and what makes you feel alive. But you're probably wondering what you like to do because this seems to be the one question people have trouble with most. But don't worry about it because I actually have the secret to find your passion. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. I can't bloody tell you what your life purpose is. That's something you have to find out for yourself based on what you do every day. I can already tell someone's going to be like, You didn't fool me. I knew you were going to say that. But the main point I'm getting at here is that you can choose anything you're interested in as long as you don't mind studying about it every day just a little bit. I don't know, maybe you like drawing comic books. You can spend the first week practicing drawing. Then the next week, you can begin learning how to draw comic book panels. And you just keep improving your skills daily until you get better and better at it. Just keep in mind that you do have something unique that you can share with the rest of the world. Whether you think you can or can't will actually determine whether you even start to take action. And it's not easy determining what you want to do with your life, but you do have to narrow your choices. But remember that deciding will always be the hardest part of your journey. We all have an idea based on what we want to do, but only 10% of the population ever chase after them. John might know he wants to be a firefighter, or maybe a dancer, or perhaps a chef. But most people, like John, don't have the courage to commit themselves to one idea based on what they want to do. So quit making it more confusing than it should be and just make a choice. You can always change your mind if it doesn't turn out to be something you're into. Michael Jordan gave baseball a shot and tried his best at it. But in the end, he realized it wasn't for him and returned back to basketball. The issue isn't what you want to do with your life, but making that final decision to head towards it with daily action and commitment. And that's Black Hole Focus by Isaiah Henkel. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you have any ideas based on a video you'd like to see in the future, just hit a comment below so I can take a look at that. Alright guys, peace out and I hope you guys have a great day.